Time 10:58 p.m., all retail units closed, food court lights dimmed. One individual still detected moving on camera 14. I was the guard assigned to camera 14. The screen showed the children's wing, the part of the mall with toy stores, the carousel, and the old Santa photo booth that hadn't been used since the pandemic. I zoomed in. The mall should have been empty, but someone was standing near the Santa chair. They were too tall to be a kid, too still to be normal. I radioed my partner Phil and told him to walk the east corridor. While he went, I kept my eyes on the screen. The figure didn't move, didn't shift, didn't breathe, just stood there facing the chair. Then the carousel turned on by itself. Slow, quiet, no music, just the faint creaking of old wood. The figure finally moved. It took one slow step forward, then another, straight toward the chair. Phil's radio crackled. "Hallway's clear," he said. "I don't see anyone." I told him to check the children's wing. There was a long pause. Then he whispered, "There's something wrong with the air in here." The camera feed glitched. When it came back, the Santa chair was empty. The figure was gone. But something else was sitting there. A small red mitten, child-sized. Phil's breathing grew heavy over the radio. "I found the mitten," he said, "but it's warm." The mall's hallway speakers clicked on. Not an announcement, not music, just breathing. Slow, close, right behind Phil. He screamed. The camera went black. I ran. My footsteps echoed through the empty corridors. Every store window reflected only me, except one. In the reflection of the toy store window, someone else was standing behind me. Tall, wearing a long red coat stitched together from children's winter clothes. I spun around. Nothing was there. Phil's radio lay on the floor near the carousel, still transmitting. Through the static, I heard a voice whisper, "They didn't leave." Security found Phil's keys, his badge, his flashlight, but they never found Phil. The mall reopened after New Year's, but camera 14 was retired, because every Christmas Eve just before midnight, it still detects movement, standing quietly in front of the Santa chair, waiting for someone else to take the night shift. The mall closed at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. By 10:07, the building already felt dead, the kind of dead that still smells like perfume, cinnamon pretzels, and fake pine trees, but has no footsteps to justify it. I'd been a night security guard at Red River Mall in northern Minnesota for almost 4 years. I'd worked shootings, overdoses, theft rings, and even a guy who tried to live inside the ceiling. Nothing about that building scared me anymore, until the night of December 24th, 2022. My partner called in sick, so I had the building to myself. 400,000 square feet, 3 floors, 2 underground loading docks, and one Santa Village display that corporate refused to let us dismantle until after New Year's. By 10:41, I was finishing my first walking sweep. Everything was normal. Store gates locked, food court lights off, fountain silent. Then I reached the children's wing, and I heard singing. Soft at first, like a music box dying. I stopped walking. The sound was coming from Santa's village. I radioed into the desk. No answer. That was weird. Dispatch never left early. I walked closer. The lights around the display were on, but the power to that wing had been scheduled to shut down at 10:30. Someone had turned them back on. The animatronic elves were moving, slow, jerky. But no music was playing, only the singing, and it wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from behind the backdrop. I called out, "Mall security, anyone there?" The singing stopped. Dead silence. Then a child's voice said, "You're late." My stomach dropped. I pulled my flashlight and stepped around the fake snow wall. The Santa chair was empty, but behind it, someone had built a small fort out of cardboard shipping boxes, and inside it were shoes. Dozens of children's shoes, snow boots, light-up sneakers, tiny socks stuffed into them. Some still had name tags on the inside. I backed away slowly. My radio clicked on, not dispatch, not another guard, just breathing, low, wet, close to the mic. Then a man's voice whispered, "They didn't get to finish opening their gifts." The elves suddenly snapped to face me. All of them, at once. Their heads twisted too far around. Plastic eyes locked onto me. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. Behind me, something shifted, heavy, slow. I didn't turn. I ran. I didn't stop until I hit the emergency exit and slammed it open into the freezing night. I stood in the snow shaking. My radio was still whispering, the same voice over and over. "They're still waiting." I called the police. They swept the entire mall. They found the shoe fort. But nothing else, no prints, no cameras caught anything, not even me running. Just empty hallways. Corporate closed the children's wing for renovations. But a month later, they quietly removed 12 missing children posters from the community board. Different years, different towns, same shoe sizes. I quit. But every Christmas Eve at exactly 10:41 p.m., my phone lights up. Unknown number, no message, just a voicemail. And all it contains is children singing. Slow, off-key, like they're standing very close to me. The first thing you should know is that our mall doesn't officially exist on Google Maps. If you search the address, it redirects you to a parking lot and an abandoned movie theater. Corporate says it's a mapping glitch, but everyone who works there knows the truth. Lakeview Galleria only appears when it wants to. I started working night security there my sophomore year of college. Easy money, quiet shifts. Just me, a thermos of coffee, and endless empty corridors that smelled like floor cleaner and sugar cookies. Most nights were boring until the first disappearance. A janitor named Carla didn't clock out one morning. Her cart was found parked neatly in front of Santa's winter village. Mop bucket still warm. Radio still playing Christmas music. But Carla was gone. No camera footage, no exit alarms. Just an empty cart and a single red ribbon tied to the handle. They said she quit. 2 weeks later, a maintenance guy named Ray went missing. His badge was found inside the same village display, tucked neatly into one of the fake chimneys. Corporate blamed job abandonment, but nobody believed that anymore. Then December came. My supervisor told me not to patrol the winter village after midnight. Not why, just not to. On December 23rd, I forgot. I was finishing my rounds when I noticed the carousel light glowing down the children's wing. That light should have been off. I walked closer. The music wasn't playing, but the carousel was turning. Empty horses rising and falling. Slow, heavy, breathing. I radioed dispatch. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Small, bare, slapping softly against the tile. I turned. There were footprints on the floor. Tiny ones, wet, leading from the carousel toward the Santa chair, but there was nobody making them. The Santa chair creaked. Something sat down. The red velvet cushion sank inward. I smelled peppermint. Rotten peppermint. A child's voice whispered, "Can we open them now?" My flashlight flickered. Behind the chair, rows of wrapped presents were stacked. Each tag had a name written in black marker. I recognized 3 of them. Local missing kids. I backed away. The carousel sped up. The horses snapped upward. Their painted eyes followed me. A man's voice rose from the Santa chair. Low. Cold. "They don't leave until they're finished." The lights went out. I ran blindly. I slammed into a wall that shouldn't have been there. When the emergency lights kicked on, I was standing in a storage hallway I had never seen before. Rows of doors lined both sides. Each door had a child's name written on it. Some doors were scratched from the inside. I ran until I found the exit. I quit that morning. 3 weeks later, Lakeview Galleria closed for renovations. But every Christmas Eve, the power grid logs show something strange. At exactly 12:01 a.m., electricity spikes inside the empty building, only in one area, the winter village. because something in there is still opening its presents, and it's still waiting for new ones. I wasn't supposed to be working that night. I traded shifts with another guard because he wanted Christmas Eve off with his kids. He had twin boys. He showed me pictures all the time. Same jackets, same haircut, same smile. He said nothing ever happens on holidays. He said it was the easiest overtime money in the world. By the time I parked behind the mall, the sun was already gone. The building glowed in that soft yellow way malls do after closing, like it's pretending to still be alive. Inside, the air smelled like cinnamon, floor cleaner, and plastic pine trees. At 9:55 p.m., the last store gate slammed shut. At 10, the main lights dimmed. By 10:07, the mall was mine. I poured coffee and sat at the security desk watching camera feeds roll across the monitors. 3 floors, 2 underground docks, 1 children's wing that corporate insisted on leaving decorated until January. At 10:14, the motion detector on camera 22 flickered. Not tripped, just flickered, like the sensor couldn't decide if something was there. I leaned forward and zoomed in. The camera showed Santa's winter village, fake snow, plastic trees, a velvet Santa chair, the carousel horses frozen mid-rise, and something tall passed behind the trees. Not fast, not slow, just sliding. It didn't cast a shadow. I told myself it was a reflection. Then the carousel turned. 1 click, then another. No music, just wood creaking under weight. My radio crackled. Not dispatch, just breathing. Low, close, wet. Then the speakers overhead popped and a whisper slid through the mall. They're still awake. The lights in the children's wing turned back on. I stood up. I should have waited for backup. But my phone had no signal, and dispatch wasn't answering, so I grabbed my flashlight and walked. Every step echoed too loud. The farther I went, the colder the air became. By the time I reached the children's wing, my breath was fogging. The village was glowing, too bright. 2. The Santa chair was empty, but the floor in front of it was covered in tiny handprints, hundreds of them, all pointing toward the chair. I took 1 step back. The carousel creaked again. One of the horses turned its head. Something dark hung from its mouth. I aimed my light at it. It was a security badge. My co-worker's badge. The man who traded shifts with me. The lights flickered. A soft voice whispered behind me, "You're late." I spun around. No one was there. But a silver present now sat on the Santa chair. Perfect corners, neat bow, my name written on the tag. My stomach turned cold. The box twitched, slow, like something inside was breathing. My radio burst into static, and then a man's voice whispered, "They don't like waiting." The carousel sped up. The horses rose and fell. Their painted eyes followed me. The present slid forward on the chair just a few inches. I ran. Every exit door was locked. My phone buzzed. No service. 1 new notification. From an unknown sender. Delivered. I smashed an emergency exit and collapsed into the snow. They found my co-worker's phone under the Santa chair. His last message was sent at 10:18 p.m. It said, "They know my name." Now every Christmas Eve at exactly 10:17, my phone loses signal and my screen lights up. 1 word. Waiting. The mall where I used to work didn't close. It went quiet. There's a difference. Lights still on, music still playing, but no footsteps, no laughter, no people. Just the sound of escalators moving even when nobody was riding them. I worked 3rd shift security at Meadowbrook Center in Western Ohio, the kind of mall that still had a photo studio, a cookie shop that smelled burned after midnight, and an entire wing dedicated to Santa's village. That wing was the only part we weren't allowed to shut down completely. Corporate said it kept the atmosphere festive. The janitors had a different name for it. They called it the nursery. The first thing that ever made me uncomfortable happened 3 weeks before Christmas. A motion alert went off at 12:31 a.m. Camera showed something crouched inside the Santa chair. Not sitting. Crouched. Its back was pressed to the seat, knees pulled up, head tilted sideways like it was listening. I watched it for 6 full minutes. It never moved. Then it slid out of view. No alarms tripped, no doors opened, no cameras caught it leaving. After that, toys started showing up. Random ones. A plastic fire truck left in front of the men's restroom. A teddy bear sitting upright in a locked supply room. Small things, but none of them rang up in inventory. They weren't sold here, and they always smelled faintly warm, like they'd just been held. The night of December 24th, I was alone. At 11:48 p.m., the mall speakers cut the Christmas playlist and went silent. At 11:52, the escalators stopped. At 11:59, the nursery lights turned back on. I was halfway down the east hallway when I heard running, bare feet, slapping on tile, then laughing, high, breathless, close. I turned. The hallway was empty, but the sound kept moving, circling me. I radioed dispatch. All I got was breathing. Then a whisper. "They want to show you." I didn't want to go to the nursery, but my legs moved anyway. Inside, the Santa chair was empty. The floor was covered in tiny, muddy footprints. They led into the fake fireplace. The bricks were soft. I pushed one. It sank inward. A hidden door slid open. Behind it was a narrow hallway, dimly lit. Dozens of drawings were taped to the walls. Crayon stick figures, red scribbles, names written at the top. Names. I recognized 2 of them from missing posters. At the end of the hall was a room. Inside were rows of small beds, perfectly made. Toys placed neatly at the foot of each one. Some of the blankets were moving. Slow, like something underneath was breathing. A voice whispered from behind me, "Christmas never ends here." The door slammed. The lights went out. I don't remember getting out. I only remember waking up in my car with frost on the windows. My uniform badge was gone. 2 weeks later, the mall closed for renovations, but 12 missing kids' posters were quietly taken down around town. Different years, same area. And now, every Christmas Eve at 11:52 p.m., my phone vibrates. Unknown number. One word. Still.